here we have in a survey of 400 adults, 45% like to read in their free time. Excuse me, I have the hiccups apparently. We have to write the 95% confidence interval for the population proportion who like to read in their free time. So for this one, first of all, we can write out our proportion, our point estimate in this case is our sample proportion. Remember, the point estimate is however you're estimating the population value. In this case, we're talking about a proportion. So in this particular case, they give it to us. It's the 0.45, the 45% as a decimal. And in general, for this point estimate, if it doesn't give you the percent there, you can find it just like you did with probabilities before. You can go through and do the amount divided by the total to get your point estimate for your proportion. So just like we found probabilities before, if you're not given it, you can do the amount of that value divided by the total to get your point estimate for your proportions. Proportions you can think of as your percentages, also as your probabilities. Those are all related to each other. Just different names for it here in this case. So we're dealing with proportions. So for our margin of error in this case, remember margin of error we have as a capital E for margin of error. Here we still have Z sub C, so our critical value from the normal distribution table. And then we have the square root of our p hat, which is our sample proportion. That's what this value is here. And then q hat, just like before, just like with q before, you do your 1 minus the p hat. So the hat there just means that you're dealing with a sample rather than a population value. And then you divide the answer by n, do the square root of it, and then multiply by your critical value from your normal distribution table. So in this case, if you look at your critical values from your normal distribution table, if we have a 95% confidence interval, we have 1.96 as the critical value, the z sub c. And then we're going to have to multiply that by our square root of 0.45. That's the p hat. Times q hat. So here if we do 1 minus that 0.45, we get 0.55 for our q hat here. And n, remember, is the sample size. In this case, the sample size was 400 here. And then if you go through and calculate that here, you should get approximately 0.048, it looks like in this case. So again, that's multiplying that 1.96 times the square root of everything under that square root, including that divide by 400 part. So if you need to, do that division part first, and then do the square root if you need to. So that way you don't have to worry about all the parentheses you would need otherwise there. So that's for the margin of error, and then to find the confidence interval, so I'm going to label that CI for confidence interval again. We do the point estimate, which was the 0.45. That's how we were estimating our proportion of those that like to read in their free time. And then remember, we do minus the margin of error and plus the margin of error. We write the smaller one first for the interval, because intervals always have the smaller number, and then the larger number on the right side, just like with a number line. Smaller numbers go on the left, bigger numbers go on the right side. So you add and subtract that margin of error. So in this case, for your confidence interval here, you should get 0.402 and 0.498. And then that would be your confidence interval there. So Remember, with your proportions, if it doesn't already give it to you, you're doing the probability of success for your p-hat just like you did before, back whenever you're dealing with probabilities.